Good afternoon. I'm going to begin to talk about the book The Age of Spiritual Machines by Ray Kurzweil. Um, Here I have some notes that I took while reading the book. Let me just find the beginning of it. Here it is. Well, the first thing that I found curious about this book was the title, Age of Spiritual Machines, and the term spiritual machines make me think about how the machines and the spirit relate. How can machines have a spirit? It's like almost saying that my phone has a soul. So I found the title interesting, and I was kind of already speculating what the book would talk about, because there are a lot of science fiction movies that talk about the dangers of the thin line between human and machine that the author talks about. One of my favorite movies that addresses this theme is Blade Runner, where the difference between human and machine begins to blur. And well, my thoughts, as I mentioned, was that will this book talk about the philosophy seen in this movie? Can machines have a soul, and what makes us human? The thing that I found interesting about the author was, well, firstly, his surname, Kurzweil. I don't know how that's pronounced. If Kurzweil, it is sure a hard surname to pronounce. Uh, and another interesting thing I found about the author was that he had many great accomplishments, a lot of prizes and awards, and he sure was an studied man. And well, if he was, he's that extraordinary man with a lot of accomplishments. What struck me the most was that I have never heard about him. So it was really a great and a nice surprise to learn about who he was and to read his work, which I found really interesting. Um, well, some things that came to mind while reading the first chapter of the book is that Japan already began using robots as waiters and receptionists. So the science fiction is becoming less and less fiction and more reality. The part where he mentioned that in the future we may have relationships with artificial intelligence, I immediately remember the movie Her, which is a great movie about exactly that, about a human man that has a personal relationship with his phone, not even a robot, just like an artificial intelligence, like having a relationship with Siri. Um, I really like how the book is not structured in a traditional way, where you are forced to read like page by page, because here even the author encourages you to read the book as you want to. I like how on the prologue, the author addresses one of the main issues in the Blade Runner's movies, and that is what is that makes us human. When machines behave and look at us, what is the thing that makes them or do not make them human? It is hard to imagine one's personal computer having a sense of humor. In a way, Siri and Alexa can replicate that sense of humor. Like when you talk with Siri and go like, hey, Siri, tell me a joke, or Alexa, tell me a joke, and they tell you a joke, you can feel that humor, but it's not that the phone or Alexa has a way
No sé si escuché la pregunta
of,
completa. Por
of
favor,
being
inténtalo nuevamente.
funny. Mm, but um, they replicate it so good that they make it look like so. So we might believe it that they have a sense of humor. In the case of Gary Kasparov, that the other talks about, that he thought machines would never be as intelligent as men, and he was wrong. He was beaten in a game of chess. I can relate to him in a way that at the early beginnings of technology, it seemed to be more like a tool for humans to use. But as technology evolved, it became more than a tool. It became a way to socialize, buy, interact. Now there are many machines that perform better than humans in some aspects. I still believe that the human hand and intellect is still very much needed, but I don't know how long that will last. I like how the book begins planning a dystopian future, and then it takes you step by step to understand the history of how this technology came to be, how it evolved, and how that dystopian future where machines become human can come to be. When the author talked about protons and electromagnets, I began to feel very lost and kind of bored. But I understand that all these technicalities that the author addresses are relevant to understand the roots of the hypotheses of the author. I like how the author compares human evolution to technology's evolution. It makes me think that if we humans came from humble beginnings, then the same thing can happen to computers and technology. So it is not a bold statement to say that in a future, computers and humans will be very much alike, because we humans came from nothing, from being just a very small particle, and now we are, well, the most intelligent beings on the planet. Uh, and the same can happen to computers and machines. They come from the human intellect, the human brain, but they're evolving in an amazing way. And it can be scary if you think in movies like Terminator, where technology takes over humanity. But I think that we should not be scared of technology and see the benefits of it. But that's not that does not mean we should handle it uh, with care as everything else. I really like the analogy the author makes with how the coding of a computer is what the DNA is to us humans. I think it is a great way to explain the importance of coding and its function on a machine. I also enjoyed the random dialogues the author puts in some chapters. Well, mostly at the ends of the chapters. I think they help clarify the theme the author touches in that specific chapter, and also help answer some questions that the reader may have. In the chapter of mind and machines, the author begins talking about if a machine interprets to be thinking or feeling, is it really thinking or feeling? And well, as this is similar as what happens in the movie Her, but in the end that artificial intelligence evolves and becomes a truly sentient being. So it was no longer interpreting human behavior. So it began like imitating us humans, but in the end, it evolved and began to really feel. I like the example the author uses of the Star Trek teleporting beam. I think that same issue was discussed in another movie, but I can't remember which. And I found that discussion interesting because it really makes you question what makes you you, your body, your memory, your cells. If you teletransport and your old cell and body disappears and a new body with new cells is born, but with your same thoughts and looks, are you still yourself or are you someone else? I like how the author addresses many points of view that talk about what makes us human, and how he does not disregard any of those points of view. On the contrary, he thinks all of those points might be correct. And I find it a very open mind way of thinking. And that kind of thinking is very useful, especially in this whole analysis he's making about humans and machines and feelings. Um, I really never came to wonder what intelligence is. I think many of us human beings just assume we are intelligent and never really question what it means or what it is to be intelligent. I like that the author addresses this theme and that, well, that theme that is essential to understanding the behavior of machines and the evolving technology. Um, well, then the conversation about intelligence transforms into the different types of knowledge and how that knowledge is transmitted. The author talks about language as a media to share knowledge. And I remember that in ancient times, that's how people used to, well, that's what people used to do, to share knowledge and stories. And that was the early beginnings of writing and cinema. And that makes me think on how movies can share knowledge and so many emotions, kind of like a human being. There are movies that just feel alive, as and some books also feel alive, but does that makes them human? It's like the book or the movie is breathing. It transmitted so many emotions that you might think it's alive, but maybe that's not the case. At least not yet. Then also the book addresses the theme about neural implant technology. This theme has been talked about for many years, as also the author addressed, but well, most recently it made me think about what Elon Musk is doing or is trying to do about implanting this neural implant technology. And I think that it can be useful with Elon Musk's works. I think it's becoming more and more real, more than ever. But as I mentioned, I think that it can be useful, especially for people with Alzheimer or any other condition, or even people without any condition. It can help them in their daily life. But I'm worried about what that will do to the human species. Will a new species of human being will be born, one where we are fusion with machines, just like in the movie Dune? I think that species was called Mentat, and they were just that. They were uh, evolved human beings that were fusioned with machines, so they could calculate many things, not just numbers and probabilities, uh, just in the blink of an eye, just like computers. Um, Also, the book addresses the theme about um, is the brain big enough? Uh, well, when the book addresses that, I thought about that what we are now is the result of the things we needed during evolution. I think our brain is as big as it needs to be in order for us humans to function and survive. Even if the person we are now, well, even the person we are now is the result of the life experiences we had. They formed us and shaped us into who we are. Uh, and of course, compared to a machine, it might not be good enough. Sorry, big enough. I also really like the idea the author presents about the new mortality, about how our bodies may perish, but the information in our brain and an essence of who we were can be kept in a computer, just like one of Captain America's villains named Sola, who is just that, a guy that translates his consciousness inside a computer, and that helps him live almost forever. Excuse me just for a second. Well, but I think that it just might be useful for the people that miss you, because I I don't think if my consciousness get transferred to machine, I think that I won't be able to remember or feel anything of it. It will be just like creating a clone of myself, but not myself. It's very hard to explain because, well, that makes me think that if my consciousness get transmitted, well, I'm just a machine replicating who I used to be. And my whole essence, well, it makes me think that my whole essence is translated into ones and zeros. And I think that is kind of scary to think about how we can be simply replaced, and how our whole human behavior, what we think, what we are, can be just encoded and translated into ones and zeros. Now, when the book talks about the virtual bodies and the virtual reality, I associated it with, with two things. The first one was Steven Spielberg film Ready Player One, and Mark Zuckerberg's Metaverse, which is the virtual reality world that he's creating. The Metaverse is becoming little by little a populated world where people are buying virtual lands with real money. The other talks about that if we're going to create a new world, we should get rid of the old one. And that is sort of happening with virtual reality. Virtual reality has not come to the point where we feel and lose the sight between reality and the virtual world, like in Ready Player One, but I think we are going that way. A lot of people get lost in the rooms playing video games, and even on these virtual worlds, but virtual reality is becoming more than games. It's becoming a place where you can live and forget about the world you're currently living in. I think that it is attractive to many people because in this virtual world, you can start from zero and become whoever you want to be. The virtual tactile environment is greatly represented in Ready Player One. Maybe that fictions become reality with the metaverse, but now the metaverse is just a baby. I find it interesting that the author talks about bioengineering weapons and what would happen to society if computers stopped, and how it will be a total halt for the world, because that is almost what just recently happened with COVID. That some believe is a bioengineering weapon, and how the world halted thanks to the COVID pandemic. But well, returning to computer stopping, I truly believe that would be a bigger chaos. If things go sideways when I don't have Wi-Fi at home, I can imagine what would happen to the whole world. One of the great benefits of technology is the aid it provides to people, like people with disabilities, that help them overcome their handicaps. And that's also thanks to bioengineering. So I think we can look at the brighter side of things. I like how almost by the end of the book, the author begins to imagine and describe a society where human and advanced machines coexist, and how many aspects of our life, like politics, economics, arts, and society itself, changes to adapt to the needs of both humans and machines. And this future world is just not like spontaneous. The author kind of begins to address it little by little, chapter by chapter, and in a way sustaining why that is very possible to happen with real data and real information. Well, to conclude, I think it is a very complex thing to understand. It's not just a singular theme. There are many themes that involve machines, computers, the soul, what makes us human. But I think that not even the scientists or the people behind so many of these things understand it fully, but the author really makes a great job trying to explain and englobe all the aspects that surround this theme so anyone can understand it better. And I think it is a topic that is more relevant and now than ever. We'll probably won't have to wait longer to see if machines do have a soul or they do not.